Hi, my name is Misha Miller, and I am a 7th grade math teacher at Clayton Middle School in Reno, Nevada, and a member or participant of the Nevada Pathways Project. So I'd like to share with you a little bit about my measurement achievement plan for this year. And you can find my goal if we click on the travel guide. My goal is that by March 2nd, 2011, 75% of my students will show improvement in using critical thinking and problem-solving skills assessed by a rubric. The 21st century skill that I'm focusing on is critical thinking and problem-solving skills. And how I plan to achieve this is I'm going to introduce this year weekly blog prompts having to do with problem solving, and students will have their own student blog that they will blog about their problem solving process for each of these weekly prompts. In addition to that, students will have quarter projects that they work on, so they need to manage a long-term project over the quarter. And then I will evaluate their progress in March. So that takes us to the more specifics about how I'll do this. So let's go to sightseeing or lesson plan page. And on that page you'll see that I have 2 of the quarter projects listed, as well as their problem solving through blogging. So more specific about the blogging, students will develop their critical thinking and problem-solving skills by posting weekly to their student blogs. Their blog response will communicate how they approach, strategize, and arrive at a reasonable solution to blog prompts presented by the teacher. The blog prompts will consist of Math on Location, which are podcasts that I've put together, and Math in the Real World photographs, which are photographs that have inspired math problems. The podcasts and photograph problems will require students to work through problems dealing with math concepts as they relate to the real world. So if we scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see that these lessons are chunked into folders, and the problem solving through blogging, if I click on the lesson plan for that, it breaks down all the elements of the lesson that I'm going to use throughout the year for their student blogs, and also their weekly blog prompts have already been put together, whether it be a photograph that inspired a math problem or a Math on Location podcast. And I will show you examples of those later on in the website. I also have folders for the 2 quarter projects. So one quarter project will revolve around data analysis. It has the lesson plan on the website, the student description for the project, and also the rubric to assess. As well as their 3rd quarter project, the Rock and Roll Road Trip Tour project. Again, it has a student write-up, it has the lesson plan, and the rubric for assessment. Which leads me to the next part of the website, the itinerary. This is a place where I listed out my summer to-dos, what Math on Location podcasts I need to put together, how I was going to research which blogging site I would use for my class blogs, and which leads me to postcards. Postcards were the different investigations that I looked at with technology, and which technologies would help support my goal for this year. I looked at LiveBinder, Edmodo. I also looked at Prezi. I love Prezi as a tool, presentation tool software, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that at the end of this little talk. And I also looked a lot at blogging because that was one of the main avenues for achieving my goal with the kids this year. Milestones is a place where I've organized into a Google Calendar when the kids will be responsible for completing their prompt and completing their projects. So you'll see that for each week it'll say when I'm going to introduce the blog prompt, when a blog prompt is due, and for instance on September 29th the first quarter project will be introduced. And the last part of the website that I'd like to share with you are samples, teacher samples and student samples. Last year I introduced iPods into the classroom and put together a little photo show of the kids using the iPods in the classroom. Notice they always have smiles on their faces. As we scroll down, so there's some professional resources that I've used, some student artifacts. I referred to different blog prompts. Some of the blog prompts are going to be photo-inspired pictures. Here's a couple examples of kids photo-inspired pictures that I'll be using, that we did last year, kids did last year, that I'm going to be using this year. So one of my students took a picture of a Pepsi can, and one of the questions that he was inspired by this picture is, if the current Pepsi can has a diameter of 2 inches and a height of 4.5 inches, what is its volume? Also, if they are planning to add 1 inch to each dimension, what would the new volume be? So students, this year's students, will be looking at that picture and responding to that problem in their student blog. Another example from last year from one of my students and what they put together, a photograph shooting a basketball, and the math problem is diagonally Chris is 15 feet away from the hoop. The basketball made a perfect half circle, so what is the area of the circle Chris just made? In addition to the photo-inspired math problems, I talked to you about math podcasts that I've put together. So if we scroll down to the teacher-created artifacts, and I click on Math on Location podcasts, this is a site where I have all of my podcasts stored. And just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, let's just click on one of them. It's a relatively short one. And in this, students will use the concept of mean to problem solve. So let's watch it. Greetings from Washington, D.C. The Metro is the rapid transit system in Washington, D.C. and its surrounding suburbs. I'm using the Metro to commute daily from Silver Spring to D.C. for a conference. Fares vary based on the distance traveled and the time of day. So here's my question for you. When arriving in Washington, D.C., I put $20 on a Metro card. I've ridden the Metro 6 times, commuting back and forth from Silver Spring to D.C., and now have $6.45 left on the card. If I plan on continuing to travel about the same distance each time, how many rides do I have left on my Metro card? So students will respond to that problem in their student blog and step through their process for solving. One last thing that I wanted to show you, I referred to Prezi.com. One of my fellow Pathway colleagues, Mary Keller at Trainer Middle School, and I put together a Prezi on using technology in the math classroom. And so I just kind of wanted to show you for just a minute part of our presentation. I won't talk you through the presentation, but just give you an idea of how Prezi is a different type of presentation software, different than PowerPoint or Keynote. And obviously I'm fast forwarding through this presentation just to give you an idea of some of the cool things that you can incorporate into the Prezi.com presentation. And I couldn't leave this presentation without showing you pictures of the students using the technology in the classroom. So I want to thank you for letting me share with you a little bit about how I'm trying to incorporate 21st century learning into my classroom.